What's up, everybody? You are back in here with the Pro Football Pod. You've got Hulk, you've got Coach. We're hanging out with you guys. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. 500 subscribers, free jersey coming to one of you guys. I like free stuff. Coach likes free stuff. You gotta like free stuff. Tell your homies, tell your friends, subscribe, share, do all of that. Fantasy Football for Dummies playlist, we continue to roll on here. And Coach, we've got a good one for him today. Big one. When to draft your quarterback, your running back, your tight ends, wide receivers, you just draft them whenever because they're all over the place. So little draft strategies for all you guys, you amateurs, stuff like that. We're a show for the people, right, Coach?
Exactly. For the people, by the people, to the people.
To the people, for all the people.
For all.
So let's go ahead and dive into it with this, the first one there on the list, when to draft your quarterback. So I'm going to let you take this one first, Coach, because my strategy might be a little different than yours, because I'm kind of firm on my strategy.
And I hear you. We've talked about it in quite a few of our episodes already. If you guys haven't checked those out, definitely do. But I think that there are some quarterbacks that are worth taking a little bit early. I'm only okay with a few of them, though. I'm not just going to take any quarterback early. I think that after, like Josh Allen in the beginning of the second round, that's a bit early for me to take my quarterback. I would rather get 2 wide receivers in my first 2 rounds. Jalen Hurts at the end of the second, almost into the third, it's still a bit early. Patrick Mahomes, I can't believe he's still being drafted this high. Like, the amount of points that he gets compared to guys like Joe Burrow and Jordan Love whenever they finish the season isn't enough of a disparity between taking someone in the 3rd round or taking someone in the 6th round. I think for me, CJ Stroud is the beginning of my tier of quarterback that I'm okay with taking because I can get him midway through the 4th. If I've got the first pick and I'm picking at the beginning of the 1st and the beginning of the 3rd, I'm okay in the end of the 4th taking him. If I'm getting the 5th pick and I can get him in the middle of the 4th, I'm okay with that. That's like, but then there's another fall off between Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow. I think Jordan Love, Dak Prescott are probably worth taking a little bit early. Kyler Murray, not too interested in, though that's probably something a lot of people disagree with. I know he's been a good running quarterback for a while. But then I think Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, this is the safe place to start taking a quarterback.
And that's where I'd like to step in because that's my strategy. While I would love to have a Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, I know Anthony Richardson is a huge fantasy darling for people this year. High risk, high reward. I understand it. Anytime I go into a draft and I tell myself I want to look at targeting a quarterback early, I always end up waiting till about the 6th, 7th, 8th round, if not later. Almost every draft I do, I'm more in the line of targeting a Jordan Love, Dak Prescott in the 6th or 7th, or waiting even longer for a Jared Goff, Tua, or just let me take a dart throw on Jaden Daniels in his rookie year. If I can get something to what Lamar Jackson was able to do in his first full season playing, I mean, yeah, okay, I'll sign up for that as a risk it for the biscuit there. Also, though, with saying that, when I do wait to take a quarterback that late, I typically will go, if not back to back, very close together. So when I say that, I mean, if I went Dak, I'm also going Jared Goff or Tua. If I wait on Jared Goff, I'm coming back really quick with Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. And so that way, you just kind of stack your deck a little bit. You've got 2 very solid starting quarterbacks in the league.
I think a great point that you make is that even overdrafting Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers is also worth it. Like, if if you don't necessarily want to take a Trevor Lawrence or a Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams because of all the risk that they have, then you need to be willing to overdraft Aaron Rodgers and not take him at the beginning of the 10th, but you have to take him in the 11th. Like, the moment that you get a chance, if one of those three guys is still there, waiting until after that and dealing with Deshaun, a Baker, a Geno, a Will Levis, like, as your backup plan to what happens if my quarterback doesn't perform or gets hurt, it's not a great position.
No, can't do that. So
now, at the same time, if you take a quarterback early, like a CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, even Dak Prescott, I think he's the end of that tier. You can't really take a second quarterback. You need to get positional value at your other picks later in the draft. You've already put all of your eggs in. This is my quarterback. This is the guy that's going to kill it for me. And you kind of have to live with that decision.
You'll see most drafts go that way, to where they take a CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, and then the quarterback 2 on their roster is a Baker Mayfield or a Geno Smith. Like, not bad fantasy options, but the drop off between your two is incredible.
Exactly.
I like waiting because I can stack my roster out, which will lead us to our next position here of, when to draft your running back. And I'll go ahead and take this one first. And for me, I like to also wait on my running backs. Now, I don't wait near as long. When I say wait on my running backs, typically I play PPR scoring. I don't really play standard scoring. I just like the higher scoring. So while I understand Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs all going within the first round, it's hard for me to target one of those guys whenever I know I can get very solid value out of a James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, Zamir White,
Joe Mixon.
Like that. Yeah. And those are guys in the 7th, 8th, 9th round. Now, by making those guys my RB1, you're putting a lot of eggs into the rest of your roster, but it allows you to stack up on wide receivers. We just talked about quarterbacks. If you did decide to go quarterback early, I kind of would suggest maybe waiting on a running back a little bit, because you're going to need that positional value from the wide receivers that are still on the board.
If you don't take Jonathan Taylor and you take one of the running backs taken in the top 10 picks, you're missing out on Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and CeeDee Lamb. Those are all guys that you could have taken, but instead you decided that you really wanted Bijan Robinson at 7. And it's just like, what Bijan's capable of and what these guys are capable of from a risk assessment is totally different. You have to take one of those top receivers. Any one of them is better for me than Bijan Robinson. Like, it's too much risk nowadays to take a running back, and what happened to him last year isn't going to happen to him this year. But injury could easily be the bug that bites him and ends up ruining his second season in a row, and then he's that next guy that he's always overdrafted because of talent instead of by what his production percentage is going to be.
I have always found myself, if I go running back early in the 1st or 2nd round, I end up having 3 running backs on my roster by the 7th round. Just for the factor of, like you mentioned, I have to have a backup plan. And because I did go running back early, that's the plan I have to back up the most.
Yep.
And so for me, it's just one of those to where I don't like to play the game. I just prefer to wait on a running back. Sounds like you're kind of in agreement with me there. It is more of a passing league. So like I said, those top 4 guys, even Saquon, Devon Achane, like, I understand the receiving value they give you. But outside of this last year, Christian McCaffrey has lived on the IR. A lot of these running backs have spent significant time on the IR. And my number one thing is availability is the best ability. And I need to be able to start you and not worry about you.
There's too many guys that you're going to be able to take in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round that have way more receiving ability without touching the ball as often as the guys at the top. Their touchdown percentage is a lot lower because of the unknown. They share the backfield with somebody else. They're young and in a new offense. They're the number 2 running back technically, but this running back league, you're going to get so little value out of the first 20 guys taken. If you just wait until the 20 to 30 range, I think that that's a better place to take a running back.
I agree. And that's going to lead us into our last position to speak about here is kind of one of the more outlier positions of tight end. Now you're seeing more of these leagues to where they have tight end emphasis. You know, tight ends are getting extra points, you know, multipliers on their points, things like that. I have yet to play in a league like that, just to be fully honest with you. It sounds awesome, but I'm just haven't dipped my toe in. Tight end for me is one of those to where I will go tight end early because of the disparage of the top 7 tight ends versus the bottom 7 tight ends that you would get. I mean, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram. That's where I draw the line. If I haven't gotten a tight end after that point, so round 7 or 8, mentally I'm panicking. Like the rest of my roster better be stacked.
The tough thing too is that there's still risk in those 7 guys. Like Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, I think, are the 2 riskiest of those. And the only reason that they're higher than Evan Ingram is because their ceilings are so much higher than Evan Ingram.
I'm all in on Dalton Kincaid. I think he leads the team in receiving this year. Like receptions, targets, yards, touchdowns.
He has that potential, but he's still never done it. Same with Kyle Pitts. Evan Ingram has at least shown us what he's capable of. I think he's less risky, but he's also less potential. So to be able to get a guy at the end of the 5th or get a guy halfway through the 7th, there's a big difference there.
And for me, if you have that conviction on Evan Ingram, I take him in the 5th.
Or the 6th, yeah, exactly.
Because for me, it is, if you have your eyes set on a very specific player like that, you have to reach on them. Do not let them fall to their positional value.
Absolutely.
Or anywhere close. So somebody feels like, oh, I'm only reaching a little bit, or I'm getting a steal here. No, go ahead. Let the guys in the chat call you out for it being a complete reach. You took a 7th round guy in the 5th round. That's perfectly fine. But if that's where your conviction is, like, and I know you stand on your convictions when it comes to this fantasy stuff, that's what I would do.
I mean, if you
like,
think
I'd
of
be
it,
completely fine with it.
You have either 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, 1 quarterback, and then to take the tight end that you know that you want in the 5th round, I think that that's a great strategy. Now, would I take George Kittle in the 5th?
On my tight ends.
Yeah, or you wait, and there's guys that'll fall off in the if what happens is in the first 4 rounds, the top 6 tight ends go.
Yeah,
and you're at the back of the 4th, and Evan Ingram goes right before your next pick in the 5th round. There's nothing that you can do. You're not going to just go ahead and jump on George Kittle because he's still there. Now you have to wait for Dallas Goedert or Dalton Schultz. And I would still reach slightly for these guys if, again, like you said, if you have the conviction on them.
Well, with that strategy, you know, if you do have the top 6 tight ends go within the first 4 or 5 rounds, you kind of know, all right, most of the league already has their tight end drafted. They're not coming back and drafting a 2nd tight end.
Yeah, exactly.
So that does open up to where you are a little safer in waiting for Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers, Njoku, Goedert, Dalton Schultz, like toward in between the 8th and the 13th round.
Now,
so it does give you that safety net of nobody else is coming back in here aside from the few guys left in the league that need it.
Now, if you see a Dallas Goedert or Dalton Schultz go to the 2nd team now that has a tight end, and you ended up with a David Njoku, then you need to take Pat Fryermuth. You need to take the 14th guy. You're drafting 2 tight ends because of potential. Like, you can't wait on 1 tight end super late and then not touch the position again. At the same time, if you take one of the top 5 or 6 guys, I would say even Evan Engram, I would want to maybe take a second tight end. Take someone that has some upside potential, some touchdown potential, like somebody that could outplay Evan Engram. But if I'm taking anybody before Evan Engram, I'm not drafting a second tight end. I'm drafting more running backs and more wide receivers and maybe a second quarterback a little bit earlier than I wanted to later in my draft because I have to. I've put myself in that position.
See, I will typically always draft 2 tight ends with, I'll get my starter, and my second tight end is typically one of my last positional picks, before you get to kicker, IDP, or defense, whatever. But I will typically either take just a high value guy like a TJ Hawkinson who's going in like the 15th round.
Yeah.
Or somebody like a Ben Sinnott. He's a rookie on a squad, but the starter over him right now is Zach Ertz. And we saw how Trey McBride was able to come in when Zach Ertz went down last year for the Cardinals. We can't expect Zach Ertz to play a full season for the Commanders here.
Those are the only 2 tight ends that you just named that I want between
Isaiah
tight end.
Likely. Because if
you have Mark Andrews, then
or
you're
if
drafting.
You don't.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't draft Mark Andrews, I know at some point in the season Isaiah Likely will have value.
It's going to be hard for me to watch Isaiah Likely stopping me from properly playing the waiver wire because of the potential to Mark Andrews to get hurt. It's not that he doesn't ever get hurt, and the last 2 seasons have been a little injury riddled for him. But before that, he had 2 or 3 years of no injuries and playing most every game and having tons of production. If I have Mark Andrews, then I'm drafting Isaiah Likely without a doubt. And then I'm letting him sit on my roster, and I'm okay with that because I know that if he's gone, then I have a replacement for him right away. But
one that's proven it.
Exactly. But Ben Sinnott and TJ Hawkinson are really the only 2 that I want to take after Pat Fryermuth. And I don't want to take those guys again if I'm in a super risky situation already. I want to take those guys if I have Evan Engram or George Kittle. Like Jake Ferguson, then I'm okay with taking Ben Sinnott with my last pick because he's not really on radars right now.
Now, there's been plenty of times to where a run of tight ends has happened. I've stacked up on other positions and I've completely waited on my tight end. And my tight end 1 is probably the 14th ranked tight end overall.
At the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and so, but at that point, it's fine. The rest of my roster has to be stacked with value.
If you guys are following the right.
I'm just going to play the waiver wire game each and every week with the tight end until I find one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year Dalton Schultz came out of nowhere and was a solid tight end for a good 6-week stretch. And then if you dropped him and picked up the new flavor of the week in December, that's another strategy altogether, is that we're not even really worried about the tight end position at all. That we know that it sucks and it's so difficult to get somebody outside of the top 7 that we're just going to take somebody, hope that they're okay, and then keep our eye on the waiver wire, keep our eye on target share. If we see a tight end doing what Njoku did at the end of last year, at any point in the season, we're picking him up right away.
Immediately.
1 8-target game, and it's like, yeah, that guy, I'll drop one of these wide receivers that isn't really going to do much until someone gets hurt in front of him or they get a big touchdown in 1 game.
I'll drop a child. Get out of my way. I'm on the way to the waiver wire here. Move it. But hey, you guys, we're dropping all these nuggets for you throughout the season here. We absolutely appreciate any and all support that you're giving us. 500 subscribers, we're giving away a free jersey to one of you lucky viewers, so go ahead and hit that button down below. TulsiRoseTea.com is the sponsor. Check through the rest of the Fantasy Football for Dummies playlist. It's engineered for amateurs, but veterans can pull some tips and tricks for it as well. We all love fantasy content. We appreciate you. We love you. Peace out.